not knowing how to get into the investing side, I do what most people do, and you get your real estate license. You're like, all right, the license, that's got to be the path. And so
can you kind of talk to the things that you've mastered over time in terms of like the operation sides? Like, what does that involve outside of CRM?
Figure out your proof of concept and worry about the operation stuff that you're talking about that is vitally important to scaling later.
And there's stages of leadership you have to go through. First, we have to lead ourselves. Like, we have to wake up in the morning. We have to put our shoes on. We have to get dressed. We have to go out and do our job.
You have a couple businesses cranking right now outside of the real estate, and where are you headed in the next 5 to 10 years?
There's 2 M's in life that you can learn from: your mentors or your own mistakes.
And I would think that if people are going to build multiple bridges, they're going to be in the middle of water on several occasions. So how do you decide that?
I have a whole system now, a process naturally, of how I make decisions on things that I want to be involved in or not be involved in.
I'm curious if there's an area of your life or business where you feel like you just scratched the surface, just tapped potential.
Just to hear the way you're evoking the emotion and explaining this and tailoring it to your leadership style, it speaks volumes. And it's just so interesting because I'm living this. Welcome back to the Wealth Juice podcast. As always, it's your boys Ryan and Corey here with another episode. We are out live in Scottsdale, Arizona for Immersion Season 3 with the Growth House. Today we have on special guest Cody Barton in the house. We are thrilled to have you join us, man. So thanks for being on the show.
Dude, happy to be here. Excited to do it.
Yeah, man, I'm excited. We just got to spend the last couple hours together. I will say thank you to you for letting me take a spin in the Lambo. We'll start there. Lifelong childhood dream of mine to take a cruise. He went 0 to 60 in pretty much 1 second, it felt like. But we were cruising, man. I want to start there just to say thank you. That was really cool for me. But we're going to get into your real estate portfolio. You built a bunch of businesses, huge real estate portfolio. You're an overall serial entrepreneur out here in AZ. Take us to, back in the day, maybe pre-real estate, kind of who Cody was, and then how the inception into real estate investing and building businesses.
Yeah, totally. So I've always been an entrepreneur. I always felt like a black sheep in high school. It was always this path of getting a job. And I was always I just want to make money and I just want to do whatever I want to do. Right. And so I was always trying to find different things to make money in high school from, if you've ever heard of the power balance bracelets, even those were really popular out here in Arizona when I was in high school. And so I would buy those online for 97 cents a band. And then I was selling them to all of the kids in high school for $20. And I was like, this is freaking dope. I'm I'm never getting a job. I'm just going to buy stuff online, resell, So that was one of my first entrepreneurial ventures when I was 15. And, when I was 17, I actually got into network marketing. And I did that from 17 to 21 and thought that was going to be the thing I did for the rest of my life. I built a team in that for a couple thousand people. And, I was making, 6 figures. And at 18, it might as well have been $1 billion because you're from having no money to actually having money to do stuff. So that, unfortunately, when I was 21, the company went out of business. So overnight, no more income. And I was like, crap. I, kind of overextended myself, like a lot of people do when they first, start making money, right? So, at 21, I had this ego death of I had to sell my cars. I had to pay to break the lease where I was living and move back to my parents and literally start over. And I was like, wow, what an idiot. So, and that was the transition to real estate. Cause I was like, what else am I going to do? I want to make a lot of money. And, real estate was always interesting. I read the Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I read all of Robert Kiyosaki's books. And so I was like, real estate has to be the thing. And so I, not knowing how to get into the investing side, I do what most people do. And you get your real estate license. You're like, all right, the license, that's got to be the path. And so got my license and, worked as an agent for a little bit, transitioned to wholesaling and then, fix and flipping and then buying rentals and Airbnbs. And, you could pretty much fast forward from 21 to 26, 27 doing that. And, then the last few years and a lot of other businesses now.
So you were you really did the Gary V model in the beginning, lemonade stand to selling trading cards, not all that stuff, but just the really when you were young, just flipping stuff, right? And
yeah, I was just I just wanted to make, I just wanted to make money. My family wasn't wealthy, but I went to a school where I had some friends that I'd go to their house and I'm like, what the y'all's house is like 5, 6, 7,000 square feet. And like you go on like a Europe trip for the entire summer and like they have all these cars. I'm like, dude, like this is different. Like this is a different life than I'm living at my house. And so, that was kind of a introduction and inspiration to just want more out of life. So I think that was one of the catalysts to that.
I'm curious about the actual strategy of getting into, you nonchalantly just threw in how much real estate you bought. I'm very curious about like what you did to acquire some of that real estate. And you're young now, like you were younger back then. What did you do? I know you got your license, but like what was the strategy behind getting into real estate, and what were the pieces you put together?
Yeah, so I mean, like in the Purple books by Robert Kiyosaki, he's like, you have to be the investor. You need to own stuff. And so, I was like, okay, I need to own real estate. I need rentals, get cash flow, and that's the way to create, passive income. That's it's not quite passive, but that's what we call it online. But
Semi-passive.
Yeah, semi-passive, but. Essentially, I mean, it was, I think, just like a normal progression where, I didn't have tons of cash to just go start buying rentals. So, had to create the cash. And that, essentially started from, wholesaling and, started, joint venturing on the first few fix and flips. I'd find a good deal. I didn't know anything about construction. I would, find someone that, knew construction, had money, and I would bring a deal and, start making money doing deals like that. And so, then entered into a partnership when I was like 24 with Pace Morby. And so, my thing was I always, and I still, have been a person that I love the back end side of a business, building the teams, hiring and really pouring into people. I love leadership. I really enjoy it a lot. And, the operation side of business and the finance side and how all of those things come together. And I knew sales and marketing were important. I just hated doing it. I was just like, I don't like doing this stuff. And, that's where initially that partnership with Pace started. Was he loved marketing and sales from like a networking standpoint and then selling standpoint. And I like doing everything else. So I'm like, you want to do everything that I hate and I want to do everything that you hate? This is going to be great.
It's funny in the beginning, when you start a business, you don't even think those other people exist. And that's how my brain works. Because Ryan and I are both kind of sales and marketing. I say this all the time, like you kind of act as an integrator out of necessity, but like we're both sales and marketing people. And I never thought that there was somebody that would want to build a CRM. I'm like, who would want to build a CRM?
Because they're all at home. Because they're like, yo, like I'm an introvert. Like I have to, because I'm very intentional. Like I have to get out of my comfort zone. I need to get, in rooms with people, to continue to grow in business. But the reason you don't find them is because who's going to the networking? All the freaking extroverted, visionary, sales, marketing people. So it's a bunch of, people like that are going to these things, and that's where they're all congregating. And then the introverted, back end, person that wants to like build everything else in the business is like in the corner, or they didn't go.
Yeah, dude, this is like super important to talk about, because I think you do find all those people in the room, or the extroverts, the flashy, like, hey, they'll sell you something, but the one thing Corey and I are lacking in our business, as I mentioned to you, I pulled you aside when I first met you today. I was like, it was the CRM, the back end, the email automation, the thing that like we are front facing very much so. And having the back end is daunting. And we're like, man, like we're not the hyper fixated, numbers guys and trying to like dial back on certain processes. We're like, here's the dollars in front of us. Let's go chase it, tackle it down, and then build as we go. And I kind of mentioned to you, I was like, dude, this is XYZ is where we're lacking. And it's funny. It's just like, those are your superpowers. And I think for Pace, he is the punch in the face guy, like out there full of energy, and he'll sell a stick to a rock, right?
Yeah.
And to have you in the back end running like I guess you're the cog in the machine that keeps it going. Like those are the guys that we're all looking for. And I think a lot of people who are front facing are lacking that in their business. So I think you've carved out a great niche for yourself. Can you kind of talk to the things that you've mastered over time in terms of like the operation sides? Like what does that involve outside of CRM?
Yeah. So I guess the first thing would be like, I don't think I'm a master of anything, because I always see like from a standpoint of I always want to be a learner. I always want to be continuing to grow and bettering myself, because there's always more. The more that I learn, that I don't know. So I always want to just stay in like this state of like curiosity of I can always find new information. I could always learn from other people. And, so I do believe that I do know a lot of things that are helpful in a lot of different areas, but I always try to stay on that student standpoint. But from the operational standpoint, I mean, it's the entire other side of the organization from the marketing and sales. And like, operations touches marketing and sales. It's like, what is the marketing operating system? What is the sales operating system? Where, for example, it's like, I don't love sales, but like, I know how to build out how a sales team should function. Like, I know how the CRM needs to be set up. I know how many follow-ups, how many SMSs and emails need to happen, when the lead comes in, what the sequence needs to look like, what the sales training needs to look like for the reps, what the management needs to look like, how frequent do we need to check their KPIs and all of those things. Like, I know all of those things. I don't like to do the actual sales though. It's like, I know what it needs to look like, but I'm not the one that likes to do the thing, I guess.
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier, and I'll bring it to the podcast conversation. If you are a budding entrepreneur, you're somebody that's trying to get in the game, that's trying to grow their business, I'm very curious to hear, do you feel like you should go out and build a product or build a company around sales and marketing, figure out your proof of concept, and worry about the operation stuff that you're talking about that is vitally important to scaling later? How do you decide the order, and like, because Ryan and I are in this phase of like, we're growing this thing, and then I turn to him and I'm like, this is going to scale. And he's like, yeah, dude, when we get the operations ready, like then it'll scale. And because I'm always like bringing more, like let's take it on.
Totally.
Would you say that that's a good approach for, and I'm not even speaking just to us, but just somebody who's trying to build a company, sales first, operations first? Does it matter? Do you have a formula?
Yeah, I think it definitely matters. So there's like patterns that I've noticed, and in most of the businesses that I've built from scratch to millions or bought into and helped scale. And the patterns that I've noticed, like the success factor from like $0 to $1 million a year is marketing and sales. That is a success factor. But there's only about 7% of businesses in the United States actually get over $1 million a year or more in revenue. And that's where everything else starts to come into play. Like, you can brute force market, sell to $1 million a year. And you see it a lot in like the online space. There's a lot of like online marketers and people that they're always like chasing offer to next thing to next promo, because they don't have anything on the back end of substance to keep people around, but they're always selling a thing, and they sell enough of it, they get enough traffic and eyeballs where they can, bring in $1 million a year. And so it's really, the operation side of me is like, yes, you do need to give some love to the ops and things, but like the success factor truly is marketing and sales to $1 million a year. It doesn't mean that you could just totally neglect and have a terrible product though. Like, you do need to care. It's just the success factor to $1 million a year is marketing and sales. And then what I've noticed from there is usually about $1 million to $3 million a year typically then becomes around aligning the team, because at that stage for most businesses, you're going to be hiring and you're going to be building a team at that stage. And so what happens is a lot of times in businesses that are like $0 to $1 million, they're kind of like, backyard, mom pop shop business where they don't really have a professionalized company and they don't have professionalized roles and responsibilities for the people in the company. Like, one of the common things that I see all the time is, you go into the, consult with the company and they're like, yeah, I have my, my CFO. And I'm like, dude, you're doing $700,000 a year. A true CFO is going to be like $250,000 a year. This is not like, who is it? Oh, it's my cousin, but she knows QuickBooks. Why is she your CFO? She's a bookkeeper. Like, so that's one of the things that, and so where I'm going with that is, when companies get to about $1 million a year, sometimes some of the mistakes they've made is they've hired some people that helped them get to there, where they get to maybe $1 million, maybe up to $2 million a year, but they start to reach this lid, and that's where companies get stagnant, is they have the wrong people in the organization at that stage. And at different stages of business, you need different levels of talent. And so that 1 to 3 million, what I've found is really the people that are in the business helping the founders out to help scale. And then the other thing becomes the strategic alignment of the organization. What does that mean? Well, does the organization have a mission? Which the mission of the company is like, you're planting the flag at the top of the mountain of like, we want to reach the top of the mountain, which is this specific goal by this timeline. So everyone in the org is focused on that target. Does the company have a vision at that standpoint? A vision for a company is the overarching thing that's like, you will never achieve it, but it's like, we're always striving for this. And then does the company have core values? And they're not core values I used to think are cheesy, but core values are the belief systems that you install into an organization to create the organization behavior that you want. Because what happens is, as businesses grow, the founders, if you do not have those core values at those stages, you get too big of a team. You can't one-on-one, like I can't pour into you or you every day when we have 15 team members or 18 team members. I got to be doing my job. I maybe am managing a couple people, but I'm unable to actually pour the value of just our one-on-one conversations anymore. So we need rules. It's like our mission vision is where we're going as a team. Our values are how do we behave on the way there. So those are some things on the way.
No, it's super helpful. I feel like we're getting a business 101 masterclass. So thank you. So take us to today. You have a couple businesses cranking right now outside of the real estate, and like where are you headed in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah. So this has been, definitely a transitionary period for me this year because, I'm involved in a few different businesses. I have a virtual assistant company called Start Virtual that I've had for about 5 years. We do a lot of virtual assistant services for different types of companies. And so we've built that for about 4 years, almost 5 years. I invested into a luxury plant company called The Plant Guy. It's super cool on Instagram. Not a very high margin business, so I don't really love it as much as the other businesses, but it's a cool business. I have a residential cleaning company called The Perfect Clean. Invested in some education products, mentioned with Pace, the Gator product. We built that together. And then I'm also doing on my end, I have something called Scale with Pros, where it's a membership community, basically helping people with all of the things that I'm talking about from the ops, finance, people, scaling side of a business. And so, really the direction that I'm going now is, over the upcoming couple of years is preparing a couple of the companies that I have now for sale over the next year. And then taking that capital and reallocating to, doing more private money lending. Like we talked about real estate. I'm still very much in real estate as far as, rentals, but, I do like the private money lending side of real estate a lot. So I'll allocate more capital to that and then, investing into other companies and then, consulting in companies. Cause this is what I love to do, like the ops, the finance, the people, like going into a company that has these problems. I'm like, dude, this stuff's so fun. It's just like, it's like a puzzle. It's like going and solving a puzzle for me.
Dude, it's just such a high valued skill set that you have. And I think a lot, like anyone listening to this that has a business is just like, man, like I wish I had a guy like that on my team. And I'd imagine you have people underneath you or people that you've trained up to
I have an amazing team.
Help infiltrate and help other businesses.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So we will certainly be having a conversation about that because that's, as I mentioned, that's like
you're hired.
You're hired, dude. One of the biggest holes in our business. So last question kind of on the real estate side. You mentioned private money lending. We've also had a couple of conversations about hard money lending. Are you just dealing out capital to friends, family, business owners that you know on the private side, or are you starting a company on the hard money?
Good question. Yeah, no, so I'm not starting a hard money company. I just lend with my own capital and I only lend. I have like 3 different buddies that I lend to. All have been flipping for 5, 10, or 15 years, and I don't have to lose sleep at night. I only lend first position, 1 point up front, 14% interest paid monthly, 6-month term. If they want to extend it 6 months, I'll, another point, sure. So like, I'm not the most expensive, I'm not the cheapest, but I'm very easy to deal with. But the paperwork's going to be done right. Even though they're friends, they're signing personal guarantees. They're like, it's a business at the end of the day for me. And it's like, this is a business. Like, I'm not going to just wire the money and, handshake,
Yeah, no, that makes sense. You don't want to do that. You mentioned leadership and like your kind of love and passion for leadership. I'm very curious to know what you think leaders get wrong about growing a business, or entrepreneurs in general get wrong. You mentioned core values, and I've been a part of multiple companies. In certain companies, the core values are seen and heard by a lot of the employees, and it's $1 billion company that I've worked for as a 23-year-old. And then there's a small business where it's like really hard to get that message across and people are just there to punch a clock. And I'm wondering what you think the difference is between the leaders in those companies. And some of it's chance, I'm sure, just maybe not the skill to hire the right talent. But again, I would think it starts at the top. So what do you think leaders get wrong about building culture?
Yeah, so to your point, it always starts at the top. If the organization's bad, the leader's bad. And like at the end of the day, the lid of a business is always the lid of the leader. Absolutely, 100% of the time. if there's ever a leader that's leading an organization, it's only going to grow to the size of the leader. So if the leader isn't a good leader, they cannot lead people. And there's stages of leadership you have to go through. First, we have to lead ourselves. Like, we have to wake up in the morning, we have to put our shoes on, we have to get dressed, we have to go out and do our job. And it's like, okay, we can do our job. That's step one. We need to lead ourselves. Step two is like, okay, now how do we lead others? And you'll notice in language that I talk, I don't really like using like management or like employees. I say leading or team members. Like, they're my team, not my employees. Like, technically, they're W-2. Yes, they're employees, but like, I'm not calling my team employees. I'm not saying managing my people. I'm saying leading my people. Managers force, leaders lead. And that's the way that I want my organizations to run, is like, we're showing where we're going, and we're coaching people up along the way. We're saying, hey, this is where we're going, guys. This is our mission. This is our vision. These are our values. And if you align with that, we're going to Everest together. If you don't align with that, we're coaching you up or coaching you out. And it's very much around the leader themselves, and they have to be that person. And for me, I feel like I have a duty and obligation as a leader. It's like I need to be selfless in my leadership and always be working on my leadership lid, because I will be the problem for the organization. And something that I'll present to our team a lot of times is, I'll draw this example out where essentially, we all have a lid on our leadership. I do, and we're always trying to grow it. And so I tell my leaders that they have to be doing personal development. So when we're having one-on-ones, when we're having goal-setting sessions together, they need to be like, it's not a suggestion. It's what book are you reading right now to better your skill set in your department? What book are you reading to better your leadership? What leadership development courses are you going through as a leader? And those are things that are required. They're not suggested at my companies, because they will be the problem of why we're not growing if they're not growing their leadership as well. Because I can't do 100 people's jobs, and I can't lead 50 different people. It's like, I can only lead so many direct reports, and those people have to then be able to lead their people and drive results through others. So at the end of the day, what they get wrong is they don't value it. They think it's like not something worth their time. They think that, managers manage from a title, leaders lead out of respect. People that are just managers based on the title that they're given, I'm sure you've seen it in the corporate world and roles that you guys have worked. It's like, you see someone that they're like, get all frustrated because their team doesn't listen to them. It's because they suck at leading people. They're telling them what to do versus leading them where the company's going and how it ties to their goals. And it's tying the company's mission to the individual contributor's goals is where you get the result from the team members that you're actually looking for.
Dude, it's just so interesting talking to you, because I know how young you are, and I won't say it on the podcast, but it's like, you've seen such a high level of success, and I wouldn't say a short amount of time. You've been working for a long time, but I've worked with individuals on the corporate side that are leaders, quote unquote, and they're nowhere near you. And it's just so interesting to have this like mini masterclass that we said, and like just to hear the way you're evoking the emotion and explaining this and like tailoring it to your leadership style. It speaks volumes. And it's just so interesting because I'm living this, and I still manage the W-2 and we real estate on the side, and
totally.
it's so interesting. And your company's lucky to have you. I think there's a quote out there like, leaders read. And I think that's a big thing.
Leaders are readers.
They stop, like a lot of people when they get out of college, like for those who went, or they just end high school, whatever it is, when you leave education, they just stop reading and they end their curiosity. They're like, oh man, never have to do that again. And then look at them. Which ones are at the top of their game?
Yeah.
Not many. Yeah. So my question to you after saying all that is, outside of coaching your other leaders, what do you do to refine your skills and make sure you're staying at the top of your game so that you actually can go and lead the pack every day?
Dude, I mean, I'm a reader. I'm reading all the time. I read, and sometimes people are like, you need to read 52 books a year. Sometimes I'll just read the same book over and over again for like a couple months. So like, I'll listen to the audiobook. I'm like, man, like that was good. Like, I'm going to re-listen to that. Sometimes the best stuff is just re-listen to it again and like reread it again. Cause it's like, I don't know, like I've never been smart enough to read a book one time and just get everything out of it and be able to go implement everything. It's like, I have to like repeat this stuff. And so, reading books and, investing in myself, like always in different masterminds. Like I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on masterminds. My business coach, he's phenomenal. His name's Jeff Mask, and I've been coaching with him for the last year and a half. And he joined the executive team at Infusionsoft when they were at $2 million a year, and he was brought in to lead the organization, and he helped grow it to $100 million a year. And he's been coaching me the last year and a half and on a lot of these leadership principles. And so, I have a lot of credit to him and like a lot of the leadership skills that I've gained in the way that I lead now. But I'm always investing in myself. I pay him, an average salary in America, on just his coaching. And I have another coach, Adam Coffey. He exited Cool Sis for over $1 billion. I coach with both of those guys, and I have calls with them both twice a month. And I'm in masterminds. I was at a mastermind in Utah a couple weeks ago, and I mean that's just another thing too. Is like people that are listening, and like sometimes people they like kind of like poo poo on like education, like oh like you pay for the coach, like oh they're getting a lot out of it. I'm like you're an idiot. Like the reason that I can go faster is like I want the fast pass. Like if I go to Disneyland, I want the fast pass. I don't want to wait in line. Like, can I just pay someone to shortcut my path? I don't want a shortcut in life. I want to shortcut my brain damage.
Hold it together, right?
Dude,
Hold it together.
I'm telling you, this is like one of the biggest hot buttons for me of all time right now. I'm like, we've learned in the last like maybe 6 months to a year, it's like you got to pay to play. We've invested easily 6 figures into coaching and
some were major
masterminds.
mistakes too.
Some were major mistakes.
And
but
I've
you live
wasted
learn.
money on coaching too. Pay some ding dongs that you thought were great, and you're like, wow, this is terrible.
It was horrible. And
but
then
there's a lesson in that. There's still a lesson that you had.
It's never a failure, right? You just learn and
discernment
you pivot.
and your mentors.
100%. You know how to vet people for the next time out. But I say this is it's so important. Like a lot of people, Corey and I were in a fraternity in college, right? And a lot of people are like, oh, you're paying for your friends. And then, but who are the guys that have seen the most success and have the biggest network? It's the guys that were in the fraternity, at least ours, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I look at my other friend groups like, damn, they just didn't figure it out. And it's not specifically to our group, but is the fact that we were willing to go out there and not care what people said, put our aspirations into the universe and meet other guys that were like-minded. And then we get into the game. I say we get into college, and after college you're done, and you get into the corporate world and you're done with the coaches. We had our basketball, football coaches through your whole life, right? Mm-hmm. Then you get into the biggest game where the highest stakes, when money's coming in, no one's coaching you. You have a goofball manager potentially at your job, right? Or maybe you have a great one, and maybe you're lucky to get a great one, but then you elevate to the next level, move companies. Do you have a great mentor? No. So it's so interesting where it took the podcast, getting in rooms like this and just interviewing 250 successful entrepreneurs. I'm like, dude, you're gonna have to buck up and invest in yourself. No one's gonna do it for you.
And I say it's like you have the 2 M's. There's 2 M's in life that you can learn from: your mentors or your own mistakes. I will make mistakes, and I'm happy to do that and learn. But like, if I could just pay to not make the mistake and save myself 5 freaking years of my life, like I'll pay the money. Like sign me up. You know what I mean? But people, will talk, poorly on that, and it's just, I think it's just like the wrong mindset. But when you think about like, I have those 2 business coaches. I have a personal trainer. I have a nutritionist. I have a personal care doctor that I'm doing blood work with and gene testing, like all these things that I work with. And like I pay a lot of money for all sorts of like for health, for wealth, like all of these different areas because they're important. And I know I'm not the most fit person in the world, but like I'm trying out here, guys.
I scoped that Aura ring, dude. Don't worry.
Yeah, dude, I got the Aura ring. I'm like trying to get the good sleep.
You're talking about your macros. Don't worry. I usually get some things here, dude.
I'm trying.
You're down.
I'm trying,
I've been doing a little biohacking recently too. And it's so crazy. Just when you get to a different level, you realize there's a lot of people doing it. They just don't talk about it. And it's so interesting to me because I know every single like human body is different, right? And some people like retain fat or build muscle quicker than others. And it's like, well, what does my makeup make? And you mentioned the gene test. There's so many cool things out there. I won't go another rabbit hole here, but it's cool to get in rooms and talk about this stuff now because a lot of people are like, I just go to the doctor once a year. I never go. And I'm like, dude, like your body, you got to invest in yourself, not only in your mind, but your body too. So
I don't want to randomly die when I'm 36 from something that could have been prevented either. Like,
exactly.
Totally.
But it's hard because it's so expensive, right? So it's the whole system is kind of backwards in a way.
It is.
But
it's terrible.
We won't go there.
We
won't go there.
How many hours do we got? But so I want you to speak to the people listening, and the people that are listening to our podcast are probably more aspiring entrepreneurs who are looking up to you. And trying to be like you or emulate. But the question that I have is more based around, you've built multiple businesses. It seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong, like kind of at the same time, right? Or and maybe I'm just missing the chronological order here. If you're speaking to somebody who is trying to build a business, should they build the bridge all the way across and do one? And maybe it depends, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so how did you decide, or what inflection point did you come to where you were able to branch off and take your operational skill set and build multiple and have that work? Whereas like most of the time, I would think that if people are going to build multiple bridges, they're going to be in the middle of water on several occasions. So how do you decide that?
Yeah. So I would say the biggest thing is this is a Robert Kiyosaki thing. Focus, the acronym, follow one course until successful. I didn't start these other things. I did network marketing. And then when I transitioned, I did real estate. And then as that built, then I built teams, because then you could have teams do multiple things. That's the key. And a lot of times people, they reach like their own leadership lid in a particular business, and then it stops growing. So they think, I just need to start another business to make more money. So then they start another business, and then this one starts making less because their focus is over here, and they didn't take the time to build leaders. They didn't take the time to build processes, systems, operations to continue to have this grow, because now they're over here because they thought they could make more by starting something else, but they reached the lid, and they just really needed to work on the thing that they actually needed to do, which was the number one, whatever that next constraint was in their business. And so yes, I do multiple things. Could I do these multiple things if it was just me? Absolutely not. Could I do multiple things if my team was a bunch of ding-dongs? Absolutely not. Like, I have amazing team members. Like my CFO, he has his CPA. He has his doctorate of finance and accounting. He's literally Dr. Ben. Like, it's like I have very intelligent, talented team members, and my head of operations worked in Uber's division when they were launching Uber Eats, and then, and management at Indeed and at a high level. And, so it's like I have really talented team members. And so all of it is because of them. None of it could happen if it was just me.
Love it.
It wouldn't be able to.
I think it all comes down to leadership from the top down, and like as long as you're infusing what you're learning into your groups and kind of pushing the mission, it all can be successful, but it has to be monitored. So I say all this to say, I know we've kind of chatted your ear off here for a while. You've seen a lot of success. You've built multiple businesses, massive real estate portfolio. I want to know, is there any time in your life where you'll feel like enough is enough? Like on your purposeful journey, wealth journey, the whole 9 yards, are you ever going to stop? When will you feel like you've reached your pinnacle of success?
I don't think there's ever a pinnacle of success. I think it's just, I just want to do better tomorrow than I did today. Like, I want my health to be better. I want to make more money. I want to invest better. I want my team to be better. I want my relationships to be better. I want my family relationships to be better. So I'm more focused on that than I care about like just more. And more for the sake of more isn't good either. There is some opportunities over a few of the last years where, I took some opportunities just out of the fear of, FOMO of missing out on certain things, just to do things that, yes, they made me money, but didn't add any incremental happiness or joy to my life. And it's like, what's the point? For me in the stage that I'm in, it's like, if I'm working on something, I have a whole system now, a process naturally, of how I make decisions on things that I want to be involved in or not be involved in now. And so before I make a decision, I'll go through my decision process. I have a decision tree of questions that I ask myself to make sure I'm not just doing something because of the FOMO, but it's actually something that's in alignment with what I have success statements for my life. Like, I know I'm being successful when, and I have about 15 things that, if those things are all true, by also getting involved in something that I'm considering, then I'll move forward. If not, I don't want to be involved, because I can live the life that I want just, from everything that I've done to this point from a financial standpoint. Like, no, I'm not a billionaire. I'm not, worth $100 million, but, I have all of the things that I really want. Like, I do want more, don't get me wrong. Like, I want to, travel private and not, be worried about, spending money on that type of stuff, or, I want to do different things. I started a nonprofit this year to help rescue dogs here in Arizona. So, doing events for that and helping raise money, allocating capital from my businesses into that, so it's like, I want to do more, but I don't I don't really chase the like I need more and more. It's like I need more just for the measuring stick of like, am I growing? Am I improving? Like that's what I care more about, is like I want to see progress rather than just, more for the sake of more.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think that's a great place for your headspace to be. I'm curious if there's an area of your life or business where you feel like you've just scratched the surface, or you've just tapped into your potential and you can kind of see that coming in the future.
So like an area I'm like really like newly kind of working on more?
Yeah, something that's like it doesn't have to be a new business or a new thing or something. And you mentioned your health or whatever. Like, is there an area that you're like, I just getting started with this aspect?
Yeah. I would say, just getting more out there. Like I've always, me and Pace had a podcast we did for 3 years in a row called Sunday Service. And so, I've never had an issue getting in front of groups or like talking at events. Like I've spoken at lots of events, presented in all sorts of settings, and ran facilitated masterminds and all sorts of stuff. So I've never had an issue doing that. I think it's just now more intentionally doing that and being the one doing that and setting these things up. And so, focusing on, growing my podcast as well, and also getting in front of other groups and like getting to more masterminds and getting to more events, because, I think, obviously people listening and you got everyone, listening, it's like everything you see online is just like, if you're not like doing like cool marketing and sales stuff, it's like kind of like everything else isn't really important. And like the business world, it's like if you're not like the hardcore closer guy or girl, or like you're not making it rain with whatever in marketing or sales, it's like you're kind of diminished. And and that's kind of like the way I've felt in that way. It's like, oh, like, I have these valuable skills, but people don't really care that much. And so it's like I'm, actively just working on getting myself out there more so that I can contribute in these ways, because I do, it's like this consistent conversation whenever I get around people that they're like amazing at marketing and sales, and then we like tap into what's going on in their org. They're like, dude, it's a dumpster fire. Can you help? And I'm like, I can, but like you need to care about your people, number one. Like that's the first step, is like you need to care. But yeah.
Dude, I love this. So what I'm hearing, put a bow on this, is people, process, culture. We talked to like business 101. It's a masterclass. You really care about your people, leadership, all the above. I think it's just so interesting. You're putting a spotlight on the operation side, and we've had, like I mentioned, probably like 250-ish interviews, and maybe one other interview has gone down this whole.
We're talking to all the extroverts.
It's funny. Exactly. But I love that we're putting a spotlight on this, because this is one of the biggest holes in so many businesses. And I think there needs to be a lot more love and spotlight given to guys like you, because it is like the lifeblood of running the business. The marketing and the sales is sexy, don't get me wrong, and it gets you the juice to go.
That drives the business. At the end of the day, it's like marketing and sales. If you don't have the juice, which is marketing and sales, like, nice play, dude. You don't have the juice, it's like you cannot, like you need money. You need money coming in the door. And marketing brings the people, sales converts those and creates dollars for the business. And then everything else is what actually allows the business to scale.
You mentioned that you want to get yourself out there a little bit more, and you have, and you not the speaking engagements, but like, you spent money on coaching, money on masterminds, getting in the right rooms. To me, we're in a room that I felt like I've needed to get into for a long time. I'm curious, why immersion for you? Like, why does this feel like the room that, we've spent the last 5 hours together? Ryan took a ride in your Lamborghini, which was awesome for him.
Why you here? Big dude.
Yeah. Why immersion? Like for you?
Well, I think it's again, it comes back to people. Like there's lots of events and other masterminds and things, and like things that I've been invited to or like considered, and it's just like, if there's like people that I don't jam with, it's like I don't want to be a part of it. But when you look at Jesse and just who he is, it's like he's a go-giver type of person, and he's a connector. He cares about other people. He does the little things that shows that he actually cares about you genuinely, not from a transactional standpoint, but he actually like wants to build transformational relationships. And so I think it's that is why. And so, when someone like that is the one putting together something, typically birds of a feather flock together. And so there's probably going to be lots of other people like that Jesse would be putting in a room or at an event. And so, I mean, that's it for me. It's like, I didn't, for me, I'm like, I'm not going to go and look at like, who's the speaker list. I'm like, Jesse's a good quality human being and he's a go-giver. And so good quality human beings, go-givers, they tend to bring other good quality people around. And so like, that's it for me.
Wow.
That was the answer.
That was amazing.
But
wait, he's listening. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I want to say, I mean, I totally agree. I think that I have found, and just a quick plug, I have found that there's so much like community and wealth, quite frankly, in the room, but the ego, I can't find it. Like I don't know where it is. So that to me is like, that's how you know you're in the right room.
It's relationship capital. I said this, I think we had 3 or 4 other podcasts today, and I keep saying this, but like my idea of like how I defined rich, it changed when I had my daughter, truly, or my wife had her daughter. But
it's 2024.
I've trimmed up since. It's so different to me now. Like I just value time more and doing things that I probably wouldn't even, like seeing the world in a different lens, right? So it starts there, but to talking about the value of people and like the good people that Jesse has put in this room, I haven't found ego once. There's people with 8, 9, millions of dollars in this room. That's all I'll say. And the coolest thing for me is like, dude, the first 5 minutes I met you, and I know we teased the Lamborghini here, but I walked outside, I was like, damn, man, like that, I saw myself in the future, and I was like, that's what I want. And I was like, dude, you're like, dude, hop in, let's go for a spin. I was like too scared to drive myself. I was like, can you drive me? And so we sat in there and I just felt like a little kid. And you're like, you said something to me that was really cool because it's actually what I want to do. That's one of the reasons I want one of the supercars is like, you're like, dude, this is why I have a car like this, like to give people experiences like this. And like, even just driving down the road, you probably see a kid, maybe you're at the gas station and they just want to take your picture, dude. And they just see the car. It's like, you're helping someone dangle the carrot to live the dream life that they want eventually. So I think there's something to that. You mentioned like some of the marketing guys use this as a ploy to get people in and get people excited about the sexy part. But I just see you as like the genuine, like well-rooted person within the business. And just that brief interaction I had with you within 5 minutes, I was like, dude, like that guy's in my circle now. Like I valued your personality, your relationship, and just like your energy right away. And I think that is just a testament once again to your answer to the question of Growth House and Jesse and what he's put together. It's like, there's not a bad egg in the room. And I'm just thankful to be here. So hell of an interview, man. Thank you for being here with us.
Dude, of course.
Last question.
Okay,
Last question. Yeah. Okay. What is you touched on this a little bit, but like what gets you out of bed every morning at this point, this stage? You're really young, done a lot. What's your why, your overarching theme for why you do what you do? And then we'll end the interview.
I got one too, so that's fine.
All right, that's good. I mean, I don't know, man. Like, I think it goes back to I just want to always have progress because I don't know, and I've talked with a lot of other people that have achieved, good success and lots of others that have achieved way more success than me. But, I think one of the things is when you first achieve, like, I guess one of your initial targets of like financial success, like the first time that happened for me when I first when I was like 18, 19, I made 6 figures, I got like super depressed because I thought that was it. That was the thing that I was after. And then it was like, okay, well maybe it's when I, make my first $1 million. And, then when that happened, I was like, and then I was like depressed. And I think it was having like the wrong goal because you can never have enough of what you don't need, and we don't need money as human beings. Like it's like, yes, we want it. Like, yes, I want a Lamborghini. Like that would cost money, right? But and so I think it was just like changing the priority around more of like, how can I just continue to grow as a person, and then get like Zig Ziglar's one of my favorite people. I went through some training with his son Tom Ziglar years ago. And he has a saying, it's like, if you help enough other people get what they want, you can get what you want every time. And so I think for me, it's like, I just want to continue growing as an individual. Like, I just want to see, like, I want to, get to the end of my life. And it's like, I gave it all I had for like me personally from like all areas that in my life. So I think that's a big part. So it's just, how far can I go? What can I accomplish? But then also like tapering it in where it's like, I'm conservative in the sense of like, I don't take like massive risks. Like it sounds kind of crazy because yes, I have like a bunch of debt on this real estate but there's equity and, you know, I have these different companies and like hundreds of thousands of payroll and all these things, you know, it's like, so that to some, it seems like risk. It's like, to me, I'm like, that's calculated risk. And so, you know, I want to continue just improving. Like I want to continue improving. I want my team to continue improving. I want my relationships, my health. Like I just want to continue improving. Like that's the biggest thing for me, which is my why. It's like, I just want to be better tomorrow, next week, next month, next year. And that would be, you know, a negative place for me, is if like I, you know, as a year from now and looked back and like I didn't grow as a person. Like I want to be almost embarrassed by my last year's self because I was such a knucklehead and I've learned so much, you know. So I think
that'd be pretty hard to do next year, but okay.
So what I'm hearing is you want to reach your max potential.
Yeah,
your fullest potential.
really, that's it. Yeah,
I love it, man. Last question for me, and this is really probably for most of the aspiring investors in the room. It's, you know, if you could go back to maybe 18-year-old Cody, pending he would listen to you, what's one piece of advice, knowing everything you know about the world now, that you could go back and give him if you could talk to him?
Oh, that's a hard question. What would I tell myself? I mean, I would probably just, you know, keep going down the path that you're going on. But you know, really just continuously be a learner. You know, I would slide in, please save some fucking money when you're 18, 19, 20, 21. But you know, I would throw that in there too. But I needed that pain when I was 21 to like make a lot better decisions after. So just being a continuous learner, like that's like a saying, like in our companies, like you will end up probably being let go at some point if it's like you're a learner or a non-learner. Like it's literally like, yeah, she had to get let go because she was a non-learner. Like, and it's just, you have to learn, otherwise you're not going to make it.
I love it, man. Well, this episode is proof that introverts are badasses. So we'll spotlight you there, dude. Thank you very much for joining us today. We're happy to be here, learn from you, share the room. It was a pleasure.
It was super fun. Thank you guys.
Thanks for tuning in this week to the Wealth Juice Podcast. If you liked what you heard, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, and share with friends. The more ratings we get, the more ears we'll get on our show, and in turn, we'll be able to provide you with more high-quality guests. You can also find us on Instagram and YouTube at Wealth Juice Official, where we post daily tips, tricks, and document our own journey towards financial freedom.